Assembly Member Wilson.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning, Mr Mayor. And I'm sure you won't be surprised to hear me wanting to talk about this issue as well. You know, it's an issue I've been very passionate about over the last year and a half since I've been elected, and indeed before that. So, on Friday, the Home Secretary asked protesters to show some love and solidarity to those who have been murdered and not go ahead with protests at the weekend. The Met Police made a similar request on Thursday afternoon, asking them to consider pausing your activity and postponing it for another weekend. And in relation to events on Tuesday, the Prime Minister asked university students not to protest, saying it was un-British to have so little respect for others. First time I think I've ever agreed with the Prime Minister, and also first time I've ever agreed with...
The question that silenced the chamber. The room falls quiet as Assembly Member Wilson leans forward, his voice cutting through the air like a blade. Mr. Actually, I will ask one more question. Why did the Jewish community not feel loved and wanted when other people do? A single question, simple, direct, and devastating. Around the chamber, heads turn. The mayor shifts slightly, preparing to defend himself against an accusation that is heavier than politics itself. It's not about policies or votes anymore. It's about the feeling of belonging, about a community asking why the compassion they were promised never seemed to reach them.
With the Education Secretary, who asked I would urge them to pause, reflect, to remember our shared humanity. Now, you didn't make a similar request, did you, Mr Mayor?
Well, I agree with the comments made by the Prime Minister, the Education Secretary and the Home Secretary about the sensitivity in this issue. Nobody's talking about what people's rights are. That's really important that we distinguish, and neither did any of those people. The rights people have, but it's about being sensitive and having empathy to how people are feeling. By the way, I'm regularly criticised for doing too much communication. I'm being criticised for doing not enough communication. But I've been quite clear in relation to,
Wilson opens the salt. Wilson begins his remarks carefully, but each sentence lands harder than the last. He reminds everyone that just days earlier Britain's top leaders, the Home Secretary, the Prime Minister, even the Education Secretary, had all urged protesters to pause out of respect for the Jewish lives lost in Israel. Yet London's own mayor, he says, chose silence. You didn't make a similar request, did you, Mr. Mayor? Wilson's tone is polite but firm. His words slice through layers of political caution. The implication is clear. Others had the moral courage to speak up, but Khan did not.
So I first became mayor. One of the first events I did was to attend Yom HaShoah to reassure Jewish people about this city being a beacon of people to be safe in. And it is really important we're sensitive to, yes, of course we've got rights, we're not breaking the law, but it's just been a bit hurtful, it's been a bit insensitive, it's inadvertently leading to people feeling scared. And that's why we should be sensitive to these issues.
Absolutely, we should be sensitive, and that's why all those four Labour politicians who I've just quoted all respectfully asked those...
Khan's first defence. Mayor Khan straightens his papers, his voice calm but measured. He agrees with the statements made by the Prime Minister and others, stressing that this isn't about denying rights. It's about empathy, about being sensitive to the pain of others. He reminds the chamber of his long record of engagement with Jewish communities, recalling one of his first acts as mayor, attending a Jewish event to reassure London's Jewish citizens that this city would always be a place of safety. Of course we have rights, he says, but we must also have empathy. It's a reasonable answer, but Wilson isn't done.
To not protest on Saturday, to not protest on Tuesday, on the anniversary of that horrific massacre in Israel, 1,200 people killed and the hostages taken. But you asked people to be mindful. Now, I mean, on a scale of 1 to 10, how mindful do you think the chants like globalise the Intifada really are?
I'm really happy to play semantics with the Reform Party all day long if we're going to compare and contrast words we use.
The words that shook the debate. Wilson's expression hardens. He leans in and delivers the question that electrifies the room. On a scale of 1 to 10, how mindful do you think chants like "globalise the Intifada" really are? The room stiffens. The air grows heavy. Wilson knows exactly what he's doing, forcing the mayor to confront the language that has shaken Jewish families across London. His point is brutal. Slogans like that don't just express anger, they incite fear. And in Wilson's view, the mayor's refusal to condemn them outright has allowed the fear to
in terms of public discourse and debate. Look, I'm quite clear in relation to what happened last Thursday was a heinous terrorist attack. The only reason those people were attacked was because they were Jewish. The only people that place of worship was attacked was because it was a synagogue. We also know, park for a second, it's the most religious day in the Jewish calendar, Yom Kippur. Jewish people were fasted and,
Khan appeals to humanity. Khan responds slowly, choosing his words with care. He condemns the terrorist attack that took place on Yom Kippur, describing how Jewish families in London stayed home that night, terrified. He speaks about kindness, about checking on neighbours, about the need for British decency. You can call it mindful, you can call it being British, but it's basic humanity, he insists. His tone is almost pleading. Yet even as he speaks of compassion, Wilson's expression remains unmoved. To him, words are not enough. London needs leadership, not lessons in empathy.
Repenting, not having access to their phone. As soon as word spread about that attack on the synagogue, people were really, really scared. People were staying in their homes and not leaving homes. And what I want to see is people being kind to their neighbours, showing friendship, checking up on their friends, seeing how they're doing, how they're feeling. You can call that mindful, you can call that being a good citizen, you can call that being British, but it's basic humanity. And we can debate words or semantics, but I know, as the mayor for more than 9 years, how I felt, how I've made.
Platitudes won't protect the Jewish people. Wilson seizes his moment. His voice rises with frustration. If there were rewards for hand-wringing and platitudes, you'd win them every time, Mr. Mayor. The chamber erupts in murmurs. He accuses Khan of allowing anti-Semitic rhetoric to fester for 2 years, citing chants, slogans, and protests that have left Jewish Londoners fearful and angry. This isn't about freedom of speech, he says. It's about hate speech, and it's been allowed to grow. His words sting with passion. It's no longer a debate. It's a confrontation between conscience.
Londoners have a sense of belonging, and how the Reform Party has done the opposite.
Back to my question, globalise the Intifada. That is not a mindful thing to say, is it, Mr. Mayor?
Well, I mean, I'm not going to get into the definition of semantics, but I can understand how that's felt by Jewish people. Jewish people feel when they hear that you're, whether you intend it or not, what you're suggesting is that they are at danger in relation to the consequences of the Intifada being globalised. Of course I get that.
And you've said it's all about context.
Clash over power and responsibility. Khan fires back, this time with authority. There are no powers under the Public Order Act for the mayor to stop a march, he snaps. His tone shifts from calm to sharp. He's had enough of what he sees as political theatre. He lectures the opposition on legal limits, warning them to understand the law if you want to be the party of government. Wilson glares back, accusing Khan of hiding behind technicalities while hatred spreads through London's streets. The chamber vibrates with tension, one side demanding moral action, the other defending constitutional restraint.
When you're discussing with Assembly Member Hall, and we know what the context is. We found out what the context is on Thursday last week. For 2 years, we've had this untrammelled anti-Semitism, hatred of Jews, river to the sea, globalise the Intifada. We know what it means. We know what it means. And it's been allowed, this culture has festered for 2 years, Mr. Mayor. And you can talk about being mindful, you can talk about all the platitudes. Look, if there were awards for hand-wringing and platitudes, you'd win them every time, Mr. Mayor. You absolutely would. But what we want is action. You talk about Jewish members of our community feeling scared, feeling frightened. The brave men and women of groups like
Khan's long record of defence. The mayor takes a breath and turns to the broader picture. Anti-Semitism didn't begin on October 7th, he says. It's the oldest hatred known to mankind. He lists his initiatives: visiting synagogues, funding education on hate crimes, working with schools to build tolerance. His voice grows heavier as he condemns hate speech from all sides, including the far right. I've spent 9 years making Londoners feel a sense of belonging, he says firmly, while others have done the opposite. It's a sweeping defense, part history lesson, part political counterattack.
CST and Shomrim, they're not frightened, they're angry that they have to be doing what they're doing because This culture has been allowed to fester in our city, in our country, and we saw what happened on Thursday last week when it's not nipped in the bud. That's what we're seeing in London, what we've seen for the last 2 years. It's not just about last weekend, it's not just about last Tuesday, it's not just about last Thursday. It's happened repeatedly. And the powers are there to intervene. You have the powers under the public...
The argument spirals. Wilson interrupts, unwilling to let him shift the focus. Con challenges back. Do you understand the ripples of fear that far-right marches cause? The chamber descends into crosstalk. The chair tries to restore order as both sides accuse each other of hypocrisy, one blaming left-wing tolerance of hate, the other warning about right-wing extremism. What began as a question about empathy has become a shouting match over who truly protects London's minorities. It's politics at its rawest. Two leaders claiming to speak for safety, both losing patience.
Order Act to intervene, to impose conditions, and if necessary to stop these marches going ahead. Nobody wants to block the right to protest per se, certainly none of us on this side of the chamber, but where they cross the line into hatred, into inciting violence, and then that violence has happened as a consequence, that's where we're asking you to intervene, Mr Mayor.
Well, Chair, I must be given a chance to respond to the various assertions made by the member. It's very important. So firstly, there are no powers under the public...
The final question returns. And then, just as the chair prepares to move on, Wilson's voice cuts through the noise one last time. Mr Mayor, why did the Jewish community not feel loved and wanted when other people do? The chamber falls silent once again. Con answers quietly, almost weary. I want every Londoner to feel loved and wanted. But the tension lingers. Wilson responds. We'll see in the local elections next year. The session ends not with resolution but with reflection. A city divided over who truly cares, and a mayor facing the haunting question that began it all.